So how's everyone doing tonight?
Good.
Good? Can I hear louder? Okay, great. So who's here looking for a co-founder? I see some people. Who wants to tell me what they're building on or what they're working on, project?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for one of the projects, it's a platform that's supposed to connect people around sharing cooking.
Okay.
The idea being that it becomes sort of a very social thing,
Okay.
and to increase the face-to-face interaction between people.
Okay, excellent. You're looking for a co-founder as well?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else looking for a co-founder? They want to chat what they're looking for? Your co-founder might be in this very room. You never know. Anyone else? No? Okay, good. Okay, we'll get started. So I'll give you lots of tips today. So my name is Eric. I run a startup. It's called Kyobi, and we'll get to a bit of things we're going to cover here. So a bit about my story, how I got started into jumping into a startup. What makes a startup team? So I think that's huge because a lot of startups, if you look at the stats, I think 65% of startups fail because of bad teams. So it's very important to have that core team right, and that sort of make your startup sink or swim. Characteristics of an awesome co-founder. We'll talk about that. Startup partner formula, recruiting tips, and also some resources to keep you guys, sharp for your co-founder recruiting, and then some more tips. So yeah, as I mentioned, so I run a startup. It's called Kyobi. It's a web app for companies wanting to hire. So we basically deliver curated opportunities for talent for looking for a new opportunity. And the way I got started into this, back in my corporate job, I wanted to, I had this idea. I was trying all these different recruiting sites, and have you seen a job site before? It's just the user experience and the quality of postings are so bad. I thought, okay, actually I can build something myself. And so yeah, I jumped out and started working on the idea. It was just me at the time, and yeah, I was looking for a co-founder, just like some of you. And I went to events, and I did all these things, and I came up with my own hack actually. So I started a group. It's called Founders Canada. So if you go on Facebook right now, you can see the group has over 3,000 members. And yeah, chances are your co-founder might be there too. So I found my co-founder there, and yeah, you might find your co-founder there too. So it's a massive community of founders, looking to build stuff and looking to team up. So that's how I got started. And yeah, let's see, I can show you. Yeah, that's my team. So basically, that's my co-founder. So I run the more the business side, the project management, the recruiting. He runs the software side. He loves building software. And yeah, that's our designer as well, Taylor. Yeah, Amber is our developer. So yeah, what else I can show you? Okay, here we have. Okay, so startup team, basically if you're going solo to a startup, if you want to do everything by yourself, chances are you're going to fail. There's so much to do when you're starting a business. It can be overwhelming. So it's good to have that co-founder early on, and you want to bring on someone with a complementary skill set. So you don't want a carbon copy of you, right? Although it would be nice, but that's like a duplication of skill in a startup. So if you're the business guy, you're the hustler, you can bring clients, you gotta pair up with someone with technical skills. So in that way, you guys can do magic and make things happen. And yeah, having a co-founder is just more than a skills gap. It's moral support. There are really bad days in startups. It's a lot of ups and downs. And you want that someone at least you can chat to and tell them the good news and the bad news. So that's why having a co-founder is so huge. And also the fact that you look at startups that have co-founders, especially one business person and then one technical person, they're more likely to get funded. So if you go up to an investor and say, hey, do you want to invest in my startup? And it's just you. It's a little difficult, right? Because sometimes they might think, oh, you're just that crazy person, right? No one else believes in your idea, right? So yeah, that's one thing, to keep in mind as well. Yeah, you have a question? Go ahead.
What if you're kind of good at everything and not amazing at any of the two things.
Yeah.
So like if you're fairly technical, you're designing your own thing, you're fairly competent with business, but like you're not an expert.
Okay.
How do you find someone to complement that?
Right. That's a great point. Well, actually, to be honest, great founders are great generalists. If you look at all the founders like of big companies, like they can almost do anything. Like they can hack a landing page, they can sell a product, they can market. But the key for you to find out is what is that area as an entrepreneur. You need someone to cover your skill. Because as an entrepreneur, you got to be self-aware. Like for me, like I can do recruiting, marketing, sales, all that. But if you tell me, oh, go to the back end and build like design this database thing, then it's not my thing. I don't do it for a living. So you have to find out what is it that you're amazing at, and what area do you need to cover in a startup. Right? So, but generally speaking, it's a great characteristic to have, like if you're a generalist. But there comes a point where you need that specialist person just to focus on that. And in a startup, it's just like, you're either building a product or you're selling it. Everything else you're doing is just like nonsense, right? so it's like you either have a product, you can go to the market, you can get someone to pay it, or like, if you're building like a Twitter, next Twitter, like it's user-based, user-generated content, then, again, you still need users, but, you want that person to sort of look after that. And you don't want, yourself doing everything, because it just really, chances are it's going to be really hard. So, yeah.
Just a question on, do you have a sense of statistic, like speaking about Toronto?
Right.
Is it harder to find a technical, like where's the surplus?
Well, absolutely. Well, to be honest, the hard part is finding a technical co-founder.
That's a harder.
Yes, it's
so
harder.
It's easier to find a business co-founder.
Absolutely. Well, to tell you what, if you're a technical guy, like you're a technical girl, like you can work full time, at some great companies. They pay great salary. Why would they come and work at your startup per se? So technical co-founder is hard to find. Business people, it's just definitely easier. Yeah, that's usually the case actually in the States too. So it's not just Canada.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Was like
Yeah.
I'm actually on your site, and
sure.
I've looked at some others. Sites. A lot of the times it's actually technical people who have an idea and are looking for someone to do the business part. So, like co-founders.
Right. Well, I mean, from my experience, from what I've seen, it's just usually harder to recruit a technical co-founder, because, to be honest, technical people are so much in demand. Like, if you're looking for a web developer right now, like Ruby on Rails or like some other frameworks, like that's hard to find, right? But if you're looking for maybe a business person, that might be a bit easier. But I mean, having said that, like depends on your idea too. Like, what are you trying to build, or what are you trying to accomplish? Like. And how you are exposing yourself out there. Are you at startup events? Are you at startup weekends? Do you go to hackathons, right? So, yeah, any other questions? Everybody good so far? Yeah, okay, feel free to jump in if you got more. So we talked about this. What else do we have? Oh, yeah, so a couple of things before you go on and approach a person and say, hey, this is my idea, and like, this is what I'm working on, and you want to jump on the ship with me. You want to know your business idea really well, and your value prop too. Like, what are you offering the market that's not out there, or what's your differentiating factor, right? So those are a few things you want to keep in mind. Also, equity portion as well. This is something pretty important to know as well, and this depends on the contribution of the other person. So, for example, like, if it's like 50-50, like I go out sell and that person is also working for the same amount on building the web application, then, you go 50-50 in terms of like equity split, right? So it really depends on the contribution and where you're at. But that's something you want to keep in mind too. But also try not to be like, I see some posts, especially if you go on founderscanada.ca, you will see all the posts about like co-founders. And sometimes it's like, it's pretty funny. Like, okay, I'm working on this startup idea and I'll offer you like 1% equity. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the main thing is not to get too greedy on that, especially if that person is contributing and they're gonna be like a huge force in terms of like the startup. Because if you're the business person and you wanna build a product, well, guess what? Like, if that person is not coming on board, you don't have a product, you don't have a business, right? So keep that in mind when you're trying to go for equities. Like, look for contribution and also time commitment.
Also something there called I call it the handshake factor.
Yeah,
If somebody's your CTO, they're introducing themselves, I'm the CTO of this company. Well, how much equity? I got 1%. It's like he's gonna feel pretty small.
That's right.
So it's hard. It may seem like a smart idea, you really got them, but overall, you'll walk away.
That's right, yeah. Well, I mean, if you got a great startup too, like over time, you're gonna get diluted anyway. So if you get investment and stuff, so you're not gonna own everything, obviously. And, you know, I think it's a lot more than that. So, okay, so how do you market your co-founder posting? Like, has any of you like written down your postings and you market, or where are you at? Any ideas? Okay. So basically what you want to do is you want to come up with a precise description of the role, right? Basically, you know, what are the things that you're looking for in a co-founder, and also like the company description and also the value prop, which we talked about it before. Now, this is like a really cool hack too. Like, let's say you have an idea, like for example, you said, you know, your project, right? So I would say get a domain name, hack a landing page, like a responsive, I'll show you, and start building up your email subscribers. You know, just put it out there, see who's interested, right? And that's something you want to do right off the bat. Like I see a lot of startups, they have the idea, but doesn't do anything. They don't even have a landing page and no design, nothing, right? And then like you're trying to find, you know, co-founders. So one hack you want to do is just start building that landing page from the get-go. The moment you want to commit to that idea, start thinking about naming it, buying the domain name, and also social media handles too. So grab Twitter, Facebook, all those things that you're going to be on. So, and yeah, also it's very good to work with a designer as well, like to come up with that, you know, a bit of a landing page. And I'll show you what we did for Kyobi. And this was our landing page way before we didn't even have a product, right? I just put it out there. I said, Kyobi.com, the new experience in job hunting, done, right? And then they could sign up if anybody was interested in the business, right, or the product. So yeah, a couple of things. It's responsive. We got email sign up, a little bit branding too. But the main thing I would say, make sure your site is responsive. And if it's not, like your users on mobile, they're going to look at it and be like, what? What is this, right? Like it's not going to look good. So definitely make sure you got those elements. And OK, what else do we have? Oh, yeah, so going back to the posting and marketing your co-founder role, the main thing is to stand out, because the startup, even in Toronto or Canada for that matter, it's very noisy. Like a lot of people are building stuff, and you really want to stand out. So when you're putting your job description for the co-founder, add personality to it. Like, you know, no need to sound like a big corporate company. Like, you know, try to make it cool and like add a bit of a personality to it. And this is how you break it down. You write about your company profile, projects, you know, what that person is going to do, skills and qualification, and a bit of call to action. So yeah, we have the, so if you're looking for a job description ideas, I put a template on our site. So feel free to go in and download. It's all free. So yeah. OK, what else? Yeah, so this was the co-founder position, like when I was recruiting for a co-founder, and I posted out there. So just to give you an example of like, you know, the breakdown and how you want to go about it, like, you know, a little bit of a company, you know, what that project is going to involve, and also skills and qualification, and obviously how that person can get in touch with you. So,
writing that,
yeah.
Just you?
Yep. Yep.
I like how you write, we are looking.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, like, you know, you start thinking about building the team. You don't want to say, I am looking, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, like, you know, it's totally understandable. Because to be honest, at the time for Kyobi, actually, my designer came on board first. So I worked with the designer on the branding and the landing page. And guess what? That designer attracted really good technical talent too, right? So that helped me bring on a technical co-founder. And my co-founder, Chang, like, yeah, like when I met with him, like I showed him the mock-ups, right? I showed him, hey, this is my idea. I'm working with this really talented designer, and here's our challenges. And he came on board, you know, for the challenges and like how exciting it was. And also the fact that what we've seen in terms of like recruiting sites in Canada per se, like it's just terrible, right? Like, I mean, in terms of like user experience, job posting, even the company's hiring too. So I was like, hey, this could be really good, right? But definitely I would say, like, you know, you can always work with the designer in terms of like, you know, making things look good. So yeah, so this was a sample one. Obviously get creative. But really break it down into projects, because a lot of like technical co-founders are looking for like that challenge, the back-end development, or the what are the challenges in terms of like user experience and that kind of stuff. So, all right. Okay, so I got some tips for non-technical co-founders. So anyone non-technical here? Yes? A couple of people? Marketing backgrounds? Yeah? Okay. Yeah? Okay, great. So basically, what do you want to do as a non-technical co-founder? Let's say you're building a web application or a mobile. You want to start reading on stuff, right? You want to read about how does the site looks like, or what's front-end development, right? And what's back-end development if you're building a web application. And also the key thing to remember is you're not trying to be a developer, but you're trying to communicate and like hack basic stuff together, because that's going to help you recruit better. Because if you don't know like what's Ruby on Rails or latest web framework, and guess what? You're recruiting a web developer. What are you going to ask me during the interview, right? And it's tough too, because when you're assessing for talent during interview, like you really want to look for like their side projects, their portfolio. So you really want to have a good understanding. So I totally recommend like that's not your area of expertise, but at least have some basic grasp of like web application and that kind of stuff out there. So yeah, as I said, you're not trying to be a developer, but you definitely want to be able to hack some stuff. And this was really funny. Like, if you are recruiting a web developer and he doesn't know what responsive design is, you should run. So yeah, because there's definitely a lot of people you're going to interview, and you want to look for competencies, culture fit, and all that jazz. So let's see. Okay, so characteristics of a co-founder. Anybody know what makes a great co-founder? Any ideas?
Value alignment.
Absolutely, you got it. Yes. So that's huge, actually, when you think about it. Like, value alignment is number one. Guess what? If they're really like super talented in terms of like technical skills, but they have a different value and vision than you, it's not going to work out. So number one, look for value alignment. The other thing you want to look for is also personality. Like the best test I use is like the submarine test. Would I share a submarine with this person? That's right, because you want to be able to stand and like communicate with them. You're going to spend long hours together, and if you can't stand that their personality or the way they manage their work, I mean, it's just forget it. Even though they might be superly talented in terms of like technical, or they might be a really technical person, or even a really talented marketer or business person, but you can't stand them, forget it. So always hire for culture and go skill next. So that's sort of like your priority when you're recruiting. So, and yeah, the people that you want to bring on, they're incredibly passionate about what they do. So for example, my co-founder, like if you find him at night, he's probably hacking something together. Like he's probably working on some software, or he's reading about stuff, very enthusiastic and passionate, right? And that's kind of thing you want to look for. And I guess more characteristics of a co-founder for you. Yeah, a true co-founder will come for the idea, not salary, because there's no money in the startup in the beginning. There's just nothing. You have no product. You got no team. You just got an idea up in the air, and that sort of thing you want to look for. But definitely not salary. So if somebody you're recruiting co-founder, they're looking for money, out. So look for the next person. Okay. And another characteristics of a co-founder, like is personality-wise, is persistency. Because to be honest, to get a project out there or a product to the market is so damn hard. And there's a lot of people, they get excited about your startup idea, they come and they work with you for 2 weeks and then it dies out. So one thing you want to keep looking for is that person who has that persistency and the drive. Because at the end of the day, I think that's the winner. So, and here's the quote from Batman. So, all right. Yeah, so we talked about the team a little bit. You want to get the core team right. Yeah, I talked about this before. Like, you're going to have people coming in your startup and going out, but the main thing that's going to remain constant is that core team. So it's you and your co-founder, or if you have another co-founder as well, so 3 co-founders, that's the constant. And And yeah, so this is basically the formula for startup recruit, for the core team. There's someone as a hustler in a startup, and there's someone as a hacker, and someone as a designer. So I think that's a really ideal team. But if one person can do a bit of the other one, you might have 2 co-founders, you might have 3. I think 4 is okay, but anything more than that is pushing it. Because then the decision-making process in a startup is just going to be chaotic, and it won't be efficient, put it this way, too. So any questions on that? Yes?
So you have one co-founder and the other 2 people, are they salary or do they share?
Right. Well, actually, technically, I have. Our designer is also early stage. He came on board, but yeah, I have employee, team members, whatever. But I mean, it really depends on where you're at. I would say start focusing on building your core team before actually hiring someone, or you have to assess so many things, right? But the core team, that's the thing you want to work on. Is have that co-founder or have that designer as a co-founder, have 3 people or 2. Depends on the startup. Some startups, they have 3, some have 4, but it really varies. I think it depends on your project. So, okay, so here's the formula. So we got hustler, hacker. So that's it. Okay, so here's some tips for you. Yeah, so if you are looking for a co-founder, definitely check out founderscanada.ca. So that's actually how I found my co-founder. Yeah, there's a lot of people also on Founders Canada looking for co-founders. So if you want to jump on a startup too, take a look at the site too. Yeah, we actually send out a newsletter for Founders Canada. So we send out a monthly newsletter that has the list of all the co-founder roles or all the things in the startup community. And another tip is get super active out there, which is what you guys are doing today, which is brilliant. Go to hackathons, go to meetups, startup events. Ryerson has tons of events, so go there, network. Share your story with the people when you meet them, and try not to sell your idea right off the bat. Tell them what you're working on, and I think you'll have a better chance of attracting that person for your startup. So. And yeah, this is also another place to post your roles, university career centers. So Ryerson, Waterloo. Waterloo has great technical talent. I mean, yeah, all the other universities too, go for it. Student clubs too, and incubators, Facebook groups. If you're active on social media, go on Twitter. Sometimes if you go to a startup event in Toronto, they have a hashtag. So if you have a Twitter account, you can post and say, hey, I'm looking for a co-founder, hashtag, and then all those people can see your post. So, okay. So, okay, and more ways, I guess, for finding a co-founder. You can also do direct contact. So let's say you're looking for a technical co-founder, and you want someone with computer science major. So what you would do is just find out about the program in the university and approach every student almost. If you're looking for someone with I don't know, if it requires PhD degree, go and talk to all the 10 PhD students in the class, tell them about your idea. And yeah, cold email too. You can send out email to people and say, hey, this is what I'm working on and whatnot. So that's another way. And yeah, use your own hack too. This is also another way. You can make an announcement at a specific class, before the prof comes in, go in and say, hey, I'm working on a startup. I'm looking for a co-founder. If anyone is interested, here's the landing page, here's the site, and then they can, find out more.
If it helps, there's actually a Ruby on Rails meetup, and they actually are perfectly happy with people coming in and saying they are looking for a technical co-founder.
Right.
The price is you have to buy a round of beer for everyone.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a great idea too. Yeah. So go to meetups, whether it's technical or marketing, whatnot, and sometimes talk to the professor in the class too. Sometimes they have a job posting, the professor sends it out to their student, depending on the class. I know in computer science they do that, depending on school, but the professor they have a job sort of newsletter, so you can just ask them to list your posting there. So that's another idea. University forum is another one. Reach out to alumni. So if you go to Career Center, for example, Ryerson, or wherever you graduated from or you're at, they usually have like alumni list. And the alumni on that list, they're willing to have coffee with you. So if you're looking for someone specific, like let's say an entrepreneurship startup, and there might be a founder in that list that you can grab coffee with. So why not take advantage of that too? So that's another way. And yeah, make a poster on bulletin board outside class too. I've done that for my startup too. I actually made a poster about the co-founder. I just went in and posted on the, depending on the department, but I was looking for technical, so I went to computer science outside the classroom, and I just posted there, and people started applying. So yeah, so that's another thing you can do.
Do you have a picture of that poster?
Oh, yeah, I didn't put it on, but yeah, it's probably somewhere I can find it, yeah. But it's just like a simple flyer. It's like, hey, this is the startup, like, this is the startup, this is what I'm looking for. Add a little bit of a design and just put it out there on like every bulletin. And you get responses, trust me, because people
text, or did you have a picture of your face in the corner?
No, it was actually a nice poster, but I got good leads from it. It didn't end up working with me. I did interview someone, but it wasn't a match. But it helps. Anything helps, right? Because you're trying to get that momentum going. Alrighty, so recruiting tips. Has anyone here hired before? Like, have you recruited anything, even student club or something? What are some of the tips you have? Anyone? Okay, here's my tip. Assess online portfolio and side projects. Okay, so that's huge. Like, especially if you're recruiting a technical talent, like ask them what kind of sites they built before, or how does their site look like. So for example, when I was recruiting for Kyobi, like I had tons of people apply, and guess what? We had like developers apply, but I look at the portfolio on my mobile device and it's not responsive. And right off the bat, that person is out because they have to know like all those things, right? So definitely look for that. Side projects too. So don't really care about like the courses they took in school and whatnot, because that's not a clear indication of how successful they're going to be in your role. The better indication is like their side projects. They work outside the classroom or even inside the classroom too. If there was a side project, they work together. Also, look for hackathons too. Like that's something like great developers, like they love hackathons. They go and build stuff, just on a weekend. And another tip is look for someone's EECs. So experience, knowledge, and skill. So that's something you want to assess during your interview or meetup, whatever. And go in with mock-ups. So let's say I apply to your co-founder postings, and you come in, and the best way is actually have some mock-ups. So rather than like talking about your idea in thin air, nobody cares, right? Show them what you're working on. Okay, and yeah, don't be afraid of someone stealing the business idea. No, they won't, because it's all about execution. And a lot of people have like great ideas, but it's so hard to execute. And to get execution, you need a team. And without a team, there's literally nothing. So definitely go in with a mock-up, or if you have a product already, if you hack something together, you have a minimal viable product, go in with that too. That helps. I went in with a mock-up. I always went in for a mock-up. If someone was looking for a co-founder to join my startup, I just go with them and show them, hey, this is what I'm working on. What do you think, right? And they usually tell you like details too. Oh, here's how I would tackle it, or like, here's what I would do, right? Okay, and once you meet that person, you can, figure out the equity portion, and definitely write it in paper too. Like if you end up going with that person, write something really simple. You don't necessarily need to have a lawyer to come out with all the clause and stuff, because you don't even know if the startup is going to, go all that well anyway. So definitely have it in paper. So, okay, so this is actually one of my favorite charts we came up with at QB. So this gives you more details in terms of like, how you want to go about your recruiting. So yeah, you want to figure out whether that person you're recruiting is it technical or non-technical. Let's say you got your core team, now you want to hire people. So also figure out, if you have a budget, If you don't, that's okay. Don't try to do everything by yourself. So you can always get people for equity too. So that's something else to keep in mind. You can ask friends for help. If you do have a budget, like let's say you got some funding or your business is doing extremely well, you got money, definitely assess for workload and skills. So if you want to hire that person full-time, is it a part-time? If you have time to train, definitely you can hire a student. And I think students are amazing. Like, it's such a great resource for startups. They're like gold, I think. They bring such energy and such value. And it's also good for you too, because guess what? Like, your project needs people that are flexible, and students are usually in terms of that, they're flexible and they're motivated. They want to do well and they want to contribute. So definitely tap into the student talent pool, I think. So, and yeah, your startup is a boat. So get people in the right position and start running to the finish line. Alrighty. Okay, so this is kind of cool. We'll try this. Has anyone seen the movie The Matrix? Yes, of course, right? Okay, I'm going to show you this scene, and we're going to go. Hopefully this doesn't ruin the presentation, but we'll try. Okay. I don't know if there's a sound.
Miracle. Guns. Lots of guns.
Neo, no one has ever done anything like this.
That's why it's going to work.
So there you go. So that's the startup in a nutshell, really, because everything is against you. You need tons of weapons to go out there in the market. And yeah, maybe no one has done it, right? That's why it's going to work, right? So, whoops, okay. All right, we'll stop here. Okay, so let's go back. Okay. Oops, I think I went further ahead. Okay, so yeah, so this is one of my favorite scenes, but it's totally like a startup scene, I think. Okay, so startup golden rule. So definitely, I think focus on team. Like, team is huge. I think team can bring on your startup to life, but it can also make it go dead. Like, that's how team is important. And execution, it's all about execution. So if you have an idea, get out there, make it happen. And it's all about, I think, execution and having the team. Done is better than perfect. Wizard of Ozing is necessary. I like this term. So this one means like you're doing things that don't scale, or like, let's say, for example, the payment company called Stripe. Like, the way they found their early user, like if someone was interested in their product, like their founder would literally go there, fly there, and like have them sign up and set them up manually. That's Wizard of Ozing. So whatever you need to do, get that user and make it super easy for them to sign up. Why? Because it just nobody cares about the startup. Nobody cares, right? People are busy. People are doing different things, right? And so the best way to do that is just get them to go there, have them sign up, have a good onboarding process. So that's what I call Wizard of Ozing. So just go out there, do things manually too. Like at Kyobi too, we do things manually all the time too. Even when we were launching, we wanted users to go on the site, make a profile. So I would have my network, or reach out to people, be like, hey, I'll give you a coffee. Can you fill this profile out, right? So yeah.
You would sit with them and make them do the profile.
Absolutely. Like, you have to, because trust me, like the way you think about it, it's not like the philosophy of build it and they will come. It's deadly in a startup. Oh yeah, I'm gonna build this web app and the users are just gonna come in. Well, heck no, that's not the reality of it. Like, that's the thing. Like, you have to literally do manual work. Just go there, have them sign up, try it out. Also give you feedback too. Because a couple of things, when you meet your user in person, they can tell you where your product sucks, right? Like they can tell you where it's broken. Versus if they send you feedback on a written note, it might be a little different. So you can see too, even for Kyobi, we put a button here, but hey, guess what? They didn't even know that's a button, right? So that's the thing. You never know till your actual product hits with the user. And yeah, always ship your product and always delight your users. So Okay, so we got more superhero stuff for you tonight. Yeah, so a couple of learnings from superheroes. This is actually one of my favorite slides. Yeah, superhero never gives up. And yeah, whatever idea that you have, keep pushing at it, keep going at it. And yeah, till you reach your milestone. And yeah, superheroes, they always get the job done. So you got to execute, you got to put the product out there. Just having an idea and talking about it, or watching YouTube videos on how great entrepreneurs started their career, forget it. Just go out there, make it happen, right? Okay, and superheroes are great at what they do. So, that's the case you want to have for your team members as well. And yeah, you want to be crystal clear about your mission in your startup. Like, what do you want to accomplish? What are you trying to do with the idea? And yeah, you can see more more things about the superheroes here. Like superheroes are not flawless. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, be self-aware. Definitely know what you're good at and what you're not. And once you know that, I think it makes things a lot easier. And yeah, superheroes help other people, so that's what you want to do. And you want to be obsessed with the problem that you're solving. So whatever that problem is, whether it's a web app to make things easier for the user or whatever idea it is out there. And yeah, superheroes are stronger together. Like, you can go on as a one person, but if you bring on people that are complementary to you, your startup is going to be way more successful. So, all right. Yeah, definitely. It's all about, I think in startup, it's all about leadership and having that character and courage to actually execute on that. So, okay. All right, so here's a couple of resources. If you're looking for a co-founder in Canada, I've written like a really long article on it. But very similar to the PowerPoint, it might give you some more tips if you want to read about it. Yeah, I have a startup library of resources. So this is also a very useful link. Like, it breaks down things into like marketing, product development, team building, culture. Also a little bit of like, things like legal or accounting. So check that out. And yeah, if you want recruiting tips, if you're hiring, yeah, we got tons of tips on our blog for QB, and it might be pretty useful for you. And yeah, you don't have to get it right. You just have to get it going. So, okay, let's see what else. Yeah, any questions? Okay. Sure.
I'm wondering if you could comment on giving out equity early and how much and how to manage that.
Right. So in terms of like equity, like if you're trying to bring on a co-founder, like it all depends on their contribution and their commitment, right? So I think like, if both of you are working full time on it, then you might go in 50-50, right? If they're working on it part time, or they still have their full time job, then you might have less equity portion. But I think it's more about like figuring out what you need and how much contribution they're willing to make, and figure those things out. And sometimes like you can bring on someone, you can work with them, and then see how things turn out. But definitely, like, I would say it's all about figuring out like what do you need as a skill set, right? And what kind of person is going to help you push your idea forward, and then figure out. But there's many ways. Like, it can get really complicated. There's something called vesting schedule, whatever. But I would say try to keep it simple, or find someone who's not like, like what I say, like greedy, or they're going to come in and be like, I'm going to write everything down. Like, I had one person, like when I was interviewing, like they come in, they're like, oh, here's a contract. I'm like, no, right? Like, that's the kind of thing. Like, because your startup is based on trust, right? And honestly, like, I trust my co-founder 100%. I give him my bank account, right? So, but like, that's the thing you want to do, and not bring someone who right off the bat, they're going to like detail everything. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about like having that trust factor with that person, and then yeah, you can always negotiate. Like, that's something too. Like, you can always negotiate and say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I can offer you. And I think once you figure that out, I think it's going to greatly help you. But having that core team really pushes your idea forward, like, hugely, hugely. You move faster as a startup. You have better product. You have someone to talk to. So as opposed to yourself, sitting on your desk and working on things. So it's definitely it's a great motivation factor too for you, because they're gonna come in and they're gonna help you with things also that you're not good at. And sometimes there might be overlap in terms of skill set, and that's fine. But have that person specialize in that thing that you're not good at. And that's one thing as an entrepreneur you need to find out. What are you great at and what are you not so great at? And as an entrepreneur, I know exactly what I'm good at and I know exactly what I'm not good at. So that's why you bring on people that cover your weaknesses, and you can leverage their knowledge, their expertise, and also their network too. Because you bring on someone, they also have their own network and resources. So that's something you can tap into and make this startup a kick-ass one, as opposed to all these other startups where you're just go into zombie mode where it's just going nowhere, or you're still working on the product, but you got to get it out there fast. I think that's something I learned while I was building Kyobi. I think it took us a while to actually build a product, but now I look back and I say, hey, I think we could have gone out there a little faster. But sometimes it depends when the co-founder comes into. Because if you find them early on, thumbs up. That helps greatly. And yeah.
What's your opinion about dynamic equity model? Something I don't know if you're familiar with slicing pie.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to I don't want to say it's a it's a framework, right? Put it this way. At the end of the day, it's a framework. But for you to dive into all that details for a startup that you don't know you're gonna exist tomorrow, I mean, that's literally how it is with any startup. You might start up, you don't even know if you're gonna exist next week. Why bother figuring out 20 different clauses on that thing, and guess what? The thing is gonna die out next week, right? Yeah. So that's something you, as a founder, you wanna not to try to spend time on the things that don't add value a whole lot. But hey, if your startup goes big, start having it more process. So start writing it in more paper, agreement, get a lawyer to help you, all that jazz, right? Yeah.
Are there any lawyers that work with slicing pie here?
I'm not too sure actually on that, but I know some startup lawyers they know inside out if you want to write agreement or for your co-founder whatnot. But I think that's something you got to talk to. Mm-hmm. But I would say try to spend more time on having that co-founder as opposed to all the legal jazz and
No, I'm talking from experience with another startup where things change. You start with one understanding,
right.
changes,
Right.
and then you're stuck with whatever you originally agreed on.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So then if you don't have something flexible,
mm-hmm.
it can be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I mean, you definitely want to be flexible in terms of your approach. But I mean, having that person that is willing to stick it out, I think, is huge, because your startup idea is going to evolve probably. When I started Kyobi, we had a slightly different business model than it is today, but that evolved over time. But my core team and I were willing to put through it. Otherwise, you might have people come in and they're not willing to put through the idea, whatever. So. Yeah, sure.
So time-wise, when do you know when is the right time to approach co-founders? So there's I'm talking very early on,
mm-hmm.
but to the extent where we're not even sure, we have a few ideas, but we didn't even settle on one. Is that way too early to expand the circle? Is it going to crash down?
Right, that's a great question. I think you want to be you might have 10 different ideas, but I would say you need to just kill all and just have one. Have one idea and then approach people, because it's a lot easier too. But if you go in with different ideas, then it's just going to confuse the people from the beginning too, right? And also you want to have a clear purpose of what you want to do. The other thing is sometimes a co-founder looks for traction too. Like for Kyobi, when we brought on our co-founder, we had a bit of tractions. We had companies signed up, we had a bit of user. Yeah, not amazing, you don't have 1 million users, you know what I mean? But you already went out there, you tested your idea, and you felt there's a need for this in the market, right? And that's also attracts co-founders, good co-founders, because they look and say, hey, okay, well, what's your idea about? Okay, do you have any signups? You put out the landing page. How many subscribers did you get? Or did you talk to people? Are they interested in your idea? Or even some startups, like if you're B2B, you're selling to enterprise, like would someone be willing to pay for it? I mean, not every startup idea, like you want to have monetization from the beginning. Like let's say you're building Twitter, or like you're building other platform where it's like user base, then you don't need it. But I would say just have one idea, and yeah, test out your idea. Like go out there. There's so many different ways to test the idea without having to spend like so much money on building a full-blown product that nobody wants to use, right? You can put a landing page out there. You can put a Google ad. Like that's also another hack too. Like let's say you have an idea, you want to put it out. Okay, make an ad. Okay, say, hey, you're this, we're building this, or like just make the product, right? Like, I mean, like in terms of like the ad, just say, hey, this is the product, blah, blah, blah. See how many clicks you get, right? That's a clear indication of like, the market, right? Like they're gonna say, hey, I'm very interested in what you're trying to build. And that's also another hack you can do. You can always get templates too, like, put it out there, test it. You can do market research too, like, do like all these customer feedback per se questionnaires, but I'm not a fan of that. I'd rather hack something and put it out in the real world as opposed to have people fill out the questionnaire. Hey, are you interested in this, right? I would just say hack something like really hacky, like put it out there and then see if there's a need for it. Because yeah, if you see that need, then you're onto something, right? So and that's going to attract the right co-founder too, because they're going to ask you like, do you have any traction? Hey, I'm interested in your idea, because you already know you validated your business model or your product. So yeah, awesome. Okay, yes.
In terms of hiring the team, you have your co-founder and you're now starting to hire your core team.
Right.
At which stage of the startup evolution do you think it's worth it to have a person specifically for finance, handling all the financial aspects of it? Assuming you have now, some funding, so you're a little bit along, but when do you think, or do you think you need someone who focuses only on managing the finances, the internal finances and communication with investors?
I would say that's like well down the road. I mean, as a founder, like, well, you're managing your, business from the get-go. Like, you got to have some, not necessarily expertise, but you got to have some knowledge, right? Because you want to track down everything that goes into your startup, right? But I would say the one you're talking about, that's like way more. Like, that's when you're actually like, you're growing fast. You got, 20 people or something like that, there are startups down in Toronto growing really high rate. And yeah, that's when you want to have more specialized role. For example, like, if you're growing from like 20 to 40 or something, or even more, then that's when you're going to have an actual recruiter, recruiting for the team. Like, I think the higher the team size goes, the more specialized the roles are going to be. But I think what you're talking about, it's like, that's way more like your really high growth phase. Yeah, that's when you're going to hire someone, and you can afford it too, right? Because that's the thing. Like, early stage startup, like, there's no money. You're just going in, you have an idea you're passionate about, you want to build it, and you want to also find people that are not coming in for money necessarily, right? They're coming in to change the world, build a cool product, and yeah, hopefully that's the next big thing. And yeah, I mean, the amount of learning experience and the skills you learn from startup is massive, absolutely massive. Like, I mean, I compare my own example, but I mean, like, you work at a big company, you're usually doing one or single thing, but in a startup, you learn so much. Like, it's more than doing an MBA. Because I would say this is like the real world. You're trying to build a product, you're trying to find users, and you're trying to sell it. Like, it can't get more practical than that. So, yeah.
If it's any help, I have a little trick that might help.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Get a banker to invest in your company. That's what we did. And,
nice.
You'd be amazed the free advice you get if you can pull that off. So that's my big trick.
Yep, cool. Any other question on finding a co-founder? Yeah, did you have a question down there? Or, okay. Did you have a question? Sorry. Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if you mentioned this earlier. I came in a little bit late.
Okay.
I have some friends that are like starting up startups.
Okay.
And one of the concerns they have when finding a co-founder is
Okay.
and you don't fall through with each other, like,
Right.
do they, they might take that idea and run off with it, kind of like a Zuckerberg philosophy?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always risk with that, but I don't think that should limit you from not doing it, because the vision that you have as a founder is very different from that person, right? So even like for Kyobi, like when I was trying to build the product, like, I went through 4 different freelancer developer and we couldn't even get a product out there. But I mean, like, people might come in and they just, whatever, steal your idea. But guess what? Good luck. Good luck executing it, right? That's the thing, because it's all about execution. They might come in and steal your idea. Sure. Okay, go steal it. Go make it happen, right? But I'm going to make it happen too, right? And then we'll see who's better. But the main thing is not to get carried away with that, because a lot of people, they're scared. They're like, oh, my idea is the next big, thing. But I'm like, dude, like, can you execute on it? Like, that's the main thing. So it's more about execution, but, not sharing the idea. Or sometimes you see startups like, hey, I'm going to share your idea if you sign the NDA agreement or what they call it. It's like, no, I'm not signing anything, right? Why? Because you haven't executed on anything, right? So it's more about like execution, and don't get scared of people stealing your idea. I used to be like that too when I started out. I'm like, oh, this is such a good idea, right? Will someone steal it? But I mean, I don't really care, because I think the amount of execution you need and the persistent and honestly the effort you put in and day out in a startup, oh my God, it's a lot. It's just massive. So don't limit yourself, thinking that you have a great idea. Honestly, I think it's more about great execution and ideas. So in a startup, because a lot of people have great ideas, but are they willing to execute on it and build a team? And that's really hard to do. But if you can get those elements right, if you can get execution, if you can get the team right, then you can definitely kick ass out there. But don't get scared of like, hey, this person, I'm going to come on board, they're going to steal my idea. Yeah, no problem. Like, focus on executing. Because as I said, at the end of the day, the vision that you have for your product is very different than that person. So yeah, definitely focus on execution. That's the main thing. And yeah, when you meet people, like when you go to like a co-founder, or even like a meetup, tell them your story. Like, don't try to sell them right off the bat. Be like, hey, I'm pitching you this. And I see that in a lot of events. You go there right off the bat, somebody's pitching at you. And I can tell, right? It's just you sense it, right? But smart people, they tell them their story. They're like, hey, this is what I'm working on. I feel like there's a need in the market for this. I can show you this. And then things get interesting. And then they're going to add their sort of viewpoint too and say, hey, that's a great idea. This is what I'm going to do as well. Or like, this is how I would add value to your team, right? So they're going to basically get your idea and make it even better. So that's the thing too. Like, I feel like the people you bring on board, they're going to even make your idea way better than what it was before. Even for Kyobi too, when I brought on my co-founder Chang, like he made the idea way better. Like I would have had no idea. Like that's what we wanted to do. So, but that's how you want to like tackle it. So, yeah.
You mentioned going through 4 developers.
Yeah.
You actually got something that was worth
yeah.
pursuing.
Sure.
Can you talk a bit more about maybe the mistakes you made?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. We made tons of mistakes. And if you're worried about not making a mistake, forget it. Just go home, not do a startup, right? Like, that's the thing. You're going to make tons of mistakes, like millions. I don't even know how many mistakes we did. But you move on and you learn fast from it. Like, that's the thing. But, like in terms of like recruiting, especially like technical talent, it's like, yeah, like, you want to look for those elements, like side projects, kind of portfolio. That's something like sometimes I felt like maybe we didn't we didn't really examine that enough in depth. And that's something is going to come and it's going to come and get you at some point. But the main thing is if you bring on someone on board that's not working out, fire them fast, get rid of them, like out, show them the door. Like that's the way to go. Otherwise, it's just like in a startup, that person is going to come on board and it's just going to be such a drag on the team. I swear, because your startup is just like 3 person, right? And if this person is not like, making their contribution, it's just your startup boat is going to sink fast. And I've seen it too. I experienced it too. Like you bring on someone and guess what? The resume was fantastic. Everything looked good. I hired a master's degree developer and like, turned out to be a complete disaster. But like I didn't look for those, those things, side projects, online portfolio, that kind of thing, right? But whoever you bring on board, like, give them the tools that they need, like help them like with everything and get out of the way in terms of like their contribution. But like really, if they're not contributing, show them the door. Yep, that's the thing about startup too. I think in a bigger company, still like, you can get away with like, bringing someone on board and you can drag a little, but you're not making millions yet. So, so definitely if it's not working out, fire fast, absolutely. Just have an honest conversation with them. Like I know it's hard because as a founder, you got to do lots of things.
So how do you fire someone who is 50% equity?
As a co-founder? Well, hopefully that's not the case when you bring them on board, right? So, but yeah, I mean, if your co-founder is not working out, then yeah, you gotta find a way to split and do something different, right? And go through all the legal jazz and stuff. But like, I say that's something like you really want to be careful who you bring on as a co-founder. But if you bring on somebody as a freelancer or as a part-time or even as a full-time, it's a bit easier to get rid of them. But your core team, if you got that wrong, your startup is going to sink from the get-go. Before you even start, before you even like, put the product out there, things are sinking fast. Like, yeah. Yes.
I was just going to add something.
Sure.
I think you mentioned that like seeking legal advice and having an actual partnership agreement or whatever type of agreement it is should be safer down the line. But like, from what I've known, I mean, just in certain instances, I have a friend, for example, and I guess it was a couple years ago, but he started working on something with a friend of his.
Okay.
And it was sort of understood mutually that they were in a partnership.
Yep.
And that they were, 50-50 on whatever they were working on.
Oh, okay.
And then they ended up parting ways. And then this friend of mine continued doing what he was originally doing. And he's become very successful now at it.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's very nice. But he's made a ton of money, and then he now has this old friend.
Right.
As of like several months ago, that came back to him and it's like we're still partners.
Okay. Oh God. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I told my friend so long ago that he needed to go to a lawyer. Like anyway. Yeah. But he didn't listen. So he's like, oh no, it's fine. He doesn't really care. He doesn't want to do it. Yeah. And so now he's had to go get legal advice, and he's had to settle, and he's had to give this guy who's done absolutely nothing a lot of money because he didn't have a partnership agreement.
For sure.
And so like and also for students at Ryerson, you get free legal advice. Like
there you go. Yeah.
Last night I have a lawyer now at Ryerson, and I met her, and like I already have a partner. But we were working out the partnership agreement. Sure. And you should, I think, just at least for me, I feel more comfortable having the clause in there so in case of dissolution what would happen. Right.
Well, absolutely. I mean, for sure. I 100% agree with you. I think what I was trying to say is just have something in paper before you have that person begin, right? Because if you don't have anything in paper, then it's just really bad, right? But before you let's say you meet the person and say, hey, this is the co-founder, this is the one, then write something in paper. Like at least have some kind of clause, something. And there are lots of resources. I mean, I talk to like, incubators here or like, get advice, but definitely have something in place. I think that helps. But you know what? Like, I mean, there are startups, it's just sometimes it happens and you do your best to like, move on. But I think it's just sometimes it depends on who you bring on board. That's why I keep saying it goes back to value alignment. Are they a good person? Like, are they aligned with you, right? What do they care about? Do they care about their community? Do they want to do good in the world? Or do they volunteer event? Like, those are the characteristics you want to look for in that person. But I think value alignment huge. So.
If it's any help, what happened in our case is we had a previous technical dude and that banker I spoke about earlier. So what happened is we all purposely left the room and we had beers on the table, and the other technical guy started hitting up our banker guy with his ideas. So he
my God.
So that's how we knew he was gone.
Wow.
The reason why I got hired on was because I was a programmer. I am a programmer, and I actually delivered. So I delivered a bunch of stuff, and then finally they brought me on. And once I prove that I could deliver something, which is incredibly important. You'd be surprised how many programmers out there can't deliver. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. I mean, look how many developers I went through. Yeah.
So what you do is you find out if they can actually deliver, and then when you kind of get a sense that this person is worth trusting, then you make the step of doing the lawyer thing. And we did do the lawyer thing. And
for sure.
Extremely helpful because I mean I've been in rock bands. I'm also a musician, so it's just like good fences make good neighbors, and
for sure.
It's really important to have that clear as soon as it makes sense to do so.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Anything else? Final thoughts? Yeah. Okay. So I guess that wraps it up. Yeah. If you got any questions or if you need help with something in terms of like co-founder, team building, recruiting, definitely feel free to get in touch with me, or if you're on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. That's my Twitter handle. And I wish you all the best in your startup idea. And if there's one thing you're going to walk out today, remember it's all about execution. So, all right. Thanks, guys.